the industry expert the choice of song for the entrance. So anything in particular?
Oh, okay. You guys are gonna think I'm totally crazy for suggesting this song, but it's been my jam on the 80s on 8 station on Sirius XM. So we got to put on Tina Turner's "Simply the Best." I mean, because we are simply the best industry experts. Just haha, just kidding, haha.
Say no more.
Say no more.
His views do not represent those of Paquette Travers, by the way.
We got to put that disclaimer in there. Jeez.
I can't believe you're a Tina Turner guy.
I'm not really a guy, but that song's just been playing so much on the Sirius XM that I feel like it's always on when I'm on my drive into work, and it's just been my jam.
Get you started for the day, get you in the right headspace.
Exactly.
Everyone's got a pump up tune. That's
right, it's my pump up jam for the week.
I was going for Billy Joel for the record, so.
Who's that?
Okay.
Is that before my time?
Oh. Well, we'll say hello to everyone who's joined on so far. Welcome, welcome. We will we'll give it a couple of minutes here to get everyone logged in. But in the meantime, enjoy Tomis's soundtrack right now, a little Tina Turner.
He might break out and dance anytime.
Oh no, then the suit jacket has to come off then.
Feel free. It's after 7 o'clock, Tomis.
It's after 7 o'clock. You don't know what's in this Yeti bottle right here, Kim.
PT protocol over there. PT protocol over there.
PT protocol. That's true.
You both have awesome Zoom rooms, by the way. This is the kind of what my wife's been working at, but it doesn't have the nice backgrounds that yours are. Those are nice.
Yeah. Well, I ended up getting kicked out of the house and had to relocate to the office. So this is what we've come up with here at the office.
That's pretty nice. Yeah, we you know what? We should really that is the lawyer side of us, right? It's why I go into the office and it looks as probably plain as this could. We need to definitely need to make a better impression on the Zoom space because yeah, a lot of the stuff out of the Attorney General's office right now. This is here to stay, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like a lot of. I expect there's always going to be that hybrid, but a relationship where you're going to have a lot of in-person signings again, and it's always a little bit more challenging to coordinate some of the steps that they're going to put in for signing digitally. I think there's going to be a big privacy and security. Kind of requirements that are going to kind of shorten the amount of people that it makes it harder to do, right? That sort of process. But
yeah,
I think it's going to be interesting in the future to see just how much that sort of sticks around.
Well, especially for lawyers, because when this first happened, Nathan, a year ago, it was you never did not in person.
Mm-hmm. You know what, Kim? It's actually a funny story. Like literally the week, like the newsletter from LawPro, who's the professional insurer for lawyers, the month before that COVID hit, they sent out this awesome newsletter which said, you have to guard against fraud with such extent, essentially paraphrasing that, you should get a magnifying glass out to scrutinize the identity in case you're suspicious of it. And, I kind of jokingly said to Brian and Don, I'm like, oh, awesome. We could expense magnifying glasses now. Like our ant problems are, forever gone. Right. But then suddenly, a month later, it's basically, okay, here's what we have to do for now. And, being essential workers, we didn't have that downtime. Right. So, the Attorney General himself, this guy's, he's got a real forward kind of mindset that he's really embraced this stuff. And it was interesting from the Law Society perspective, and sorry, not trying to pre-log the legal talk, but it's been interesting to see the leadership role that he's taken throughout this and kind of as much as I would have expected, or more than I kind of thought maybe than the Law Society. But it's definitely regulatory changes that have had to be made. So it makes sense that it was him. So yeah, it's an interesting time, and it sounds like everybody's starting to get on board for what that future is looking like. So anyways, sorry.
No worries. I was just going to say Tina Turner kind of finished up there. So I guess that means that it's time to get started. So welcome to everyone who's joining us online for our, it's very sad to say, but our final series or final session of the webinar series of how to buy your first home. We are so grateful that you guys have decided to join us over the last 4 weeks. It's really been a lot of fun for us, and we hope that it has been really informative for you guys. And so we are very excited to kickstart this 4th session, but just to kind of give everyone a little bit of a recap in case you missed one of the episodes before, or you are just joining us here. So up until this point, we really wanted to break down the process of how to buy your first home into 4 stages. And how we have covered them over the last 4 weeks was in session 1, we had on our industry expert, Paul Fitzpatrick, who is our broker of record here at Home Group Realty, who mapped out what's going on currently in this crazy competitive sellers market that we're seeing right now, and talking a little bit more about what's causing that market shift right now and how ultimately we're going to then move towards more of an equilibrium and how we would do that. In session number 2, we talked about the idea of, okay, once you understand what's going on in the market, how do you go about financing and mortgaging this purchase and your first home? And we had on our industry expert here, Jeff Vandiverse from Dominion Lending, who took us through all of the steps of how to properly apply for a mortgage, understanding what it means to be truly pre-approved, and how you can approach then the purchase of your home with confidence. In session number 3, we then had on our industry expert, who you can see here, Kim McKenzie, who walked us through, once you have your financing in place, now it's time to actually go out and search for a home. And what does that process look like? How do we as realtors support you in finding a home that suits your needs, suits your wants, and how to submit an offer and how to be a winner in this competitive market? Which brings us now to session 4, where we are now going to be looking at the stage of, you've now put an offer in on a home, you've had your offer accepted, now what? What comes after having your offer accepted from that date to the time that you move in? What are your responsibilities now as a homeowner, and how you can best prepare yourself and how you can protect yourself going into that? And so we now have, to cover that topic, we now have these 2 shining gentlemen in front of me, Mr. Nathan Spaling and Mr. Tomis Saric, who are going to be walking us through that step. So would you guys like to introduce yourself to everyone?
All right, I guess I'll jump in first then, Thomas.
Yeah, you start.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for that introduction, Luke. And first of all, I think we want to just say thanks a lot for including us in tonight's discussion. Definitely looking forward to talking a lot about kind of this education piece that was kind of brought to our attention, and the opportunity is definitely in line with what we certainly preach as well for our clients. So definitely a great conversation to be a part of, and thank you very much, Kim and Luke, for including us. And yeah, I hope everybody had their caffeine, because you have the boring lawyers on this one, so make sure you fill up before or at least halfway through. Maybe we'll give a quick pause, but yes, as Luke had introduced, though, I am Nathan Spaling. I'm one of the lawyers and partners at Paquette Travers law firm. The firm's been based primarily on real estate. Don Travers has been, actually, it's our 40th year anniversary this year. So I mean, this is, typical of me. I'm jumping on to grab the glory right at the very end. So that's, for all Don's hard work, but it's definitely a cool team. And, one brief shameless self-promotion is, other 2 partners in it is, like I said, Don Travers and Brian Mays. And we're actually adding a new lawyer to the mix on Monday. So there, you got breaking news on the seminar tonight already. So the value continues to rise. But to that end, we certainly have been in a lot of situations in real estate and closing. So excited to share some of my experiences with you, and to introduce you to certain concepts, because as I'm really happy to join Luke and Kim. Just be part of this education seminar is really cool. And basically the final piece is the office doesn't turn without Tomis, who's on the other end of this as well. So he's a great resource to have in anything real estate. Seen so many different sides of it as well. So always has an inspiring moment, or a moment of that he's going to throw in here as well. So yeah, he picked the song, by the way. That wasn't me.
Oh boy.
I heard that's the
That's okay. I'll take those
song.
compliments.
Like when you come walking into the office, like that's kind of what's been playing all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have how many witnesses here that the office doesn't run without me. So when I ask for that raise tomorrow, guys, I have all these witnesses to call in. No, but
I'll send you the recording, Tomis.
Perfect, thank you. No, but just really, really quickly, I'm really happy that we were able to jump on this call with Luke and Kim. As Paquette Travers, we service much of Southern Ontario, but for myself and even for Nathan, Guelph holds a little bit of a special place in our heart, and we like to spend a lot of time in the area. But just really quickly, my role here as the business development manager is to, I like to call myself the chief of staff, so I wear many different hats, but it's basically to act as the liaison for clients and real estate agents when it comes to getting your deals into our office and just kind of introducing you to our services and things like that. So we'll touch on a few of those things tonight throughout the call when Nathan goes into some topics and some conversations, but really happy to be here and really happy to get into some fun lawyer stuff that will not be boring, I promise.
That's why we had both of you on. See, Nathan was a little bit worried about the boring part, Tomis. We're going to balance each other out.
There we go. There we go.
Well, thank you both for being on here tonight. It is, it's a pleasure to have you both on. And we work, and this was something that when I was having the conversation with Kim about this webinar series and who we should have on from a legal perspective, I don't think, it was almost, the sentence wasn't even out of my mouth. And she goes, we're getting on Nathan and Tomis, like no question about it. So no, these two are the trusted duo that we always go to. So no, we're really looking forward to tonight. So let's jump in then. So like I mentioned, up until this point in the first three sessions, we've now kind of gotten to the story where as a first-time buyer, you've now put an offer in on a property and ding, 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 you are a winner. And so your offer has been accepted. And how we left it off, Kim, was there's a little bit more work that needs to be done, and to quote you, before the champagne gets popped quite yet. So at this stage, what does the conversation typically look like between you and a buyer from the time their offer is accepted to now what's next?
So yeah, Luke, so it's great. And especially in this market, you have to celebrate your wins when you can get them. Nathan, you would agree with me on that. So let's say that you had an offer and it was conditional. And pre-COVID and pre this market, you could go into an offer and you could have conditions. So what we would do then is typically in a normal offer, standard offer, we would probably put a condition in upon finance approval, home inspection, and Nathan, if it's a condo purchase, then we would ask for the lawyer review of the status certificate, and Nathan will explain that further. So now it's our work, Luke, to sort of help the buyer satisfy those conditions. Typically in a conditional period, let's say it's 5 business days. So in that we would want to get the agreement of purchase and sale that's accepted and the MLS listing to the mortgage broker, so they could start getting the final approvals for that property. You as a buyer may be approved, but now you need to make sure that the property is approved and it appraises out. So we would make sure that we would work with your mortgage broker with that, or your lender, get them all those documents. A home inspection, we work with a number of home inspectors locally. And I personally have my ones that I like. There's some that I prefer for newer homes, older homes, century homes. So it's sort of, and some buyers look to us for those recommendations. Other buyers have somebody lined up already, which is fine. We coordinate, we schedule. As a buyer representative, we are always there for that home inspection. So it's us coordinating with the sellers, making sure that the period, because the home inspection is going to take 3 to 4 hours. So we make sure that it's confirmed with the seller that we can go into the house, and we like to have the house typically by ourselves. And that's, as we talked about last week, I think we talked about the 5 systems that a home inspector is going to look through. So they go upside down, inside out the house. So it's a buyer's chance to really get to know the house, know how it works. And then we would coordinate that. Of course, we're there for the home inspection. And then if there is a chance for a lawyer to review the documents or a status certificate, then we'd make sure all of those documents are sent to the lawyer as well.
Okay, and at this stage, so this is if you submit a conditional offer, just so that people know, these conditions were for the benefit of the buyer in order to protect them. At this stage, if, let's say, talking about home inspections, if some of the results come back that aren't totally satisfactory, or you're not happy with them, what then does that process look like?
So what I generally say to buyers is, we've had our house now for 20 years. We had a home inspection when we bought it, but as a seller, as a homeowner, you don't routinely have a home inspection done of your home regularly. So often what I find is if there are issues that come up in a home inspection, typically the seller isn't aware of them either. And so it's a chance to go to the seller and say, you know what, the roof is shot, you know, it's only got 6 months left, or your furnace isn't working, or something like that. And it's a chance to talk to the seller and say, you know what, can we remedy this? Is there something that we can do to make this work? And I find more often than not, a seller's like, oh my goodness, I didn't even know that was an issue. Of course, we can work. We can either we'll fix it, we'll repair it, or we'll take a certain amount off the price.
Okay. So there's options then for the buyer to then, the deal doesn't completely fall apart. You've then got options to make the situation work.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then leading to that, so that kind of covered, talk about finance condition, home inspection condition, and then if we were going to be, like you mentioned, Kim, looking at purchasing a condo, that's when then we would get into then bringing in Tomis and Nathan to take a look at an inspection there with the condominium. So Nathan, would you mind kind of walking us through why we need to be inspecting the condo, what we look for, and why people might be needing that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I really like the way that you laid that out, Kim, as well, for the process, and just the value that I see of surrounding yourself with a team that has those resources to help get you through those conditions. Because the reality is, they're, you know, as much as they are for your benefit, and Luke rightly said, it's going to protect you and, you know, ensure that, hey, if they didn't work out, that you're going to get your deposit back, etc. But it doesn't often, tons of time, and especially when you mix in sort of regular day stuff when, the working environment had a bit of a different feel to it, and those sorts of things. So, you know, having that support is important, in the right team around you to help go through those conditions. So that's great. And specifically, we see tons of condos are great because they're first time, a lot of first time home buyers or entry level persons or buyers that are looking into this, or it could be entry level investors. So there's lots of people that are looking for condos for a variety of reasons. And, you know, I'll kind of focus, the reason there is a condo corporation in the first place is just because everybody essentially has the benefit of various shared services or facilities, essentially. And this is their way of firstly saying, okay, well, what rules does everybody have to play by in the sandbox? And let's establish those. And then secondly, how's this thing going to run? And specifically, make sure everybody's paying for what they're supposed to pay for, right? And what that kind of gets divided into, just kind of at a high level basis, turns into, an operating expense. And that's to kind of determine the ongoing annual expenses that you have to run. So things like insurance policies and common areas for like parking lots, for example, or property maintenance charges and utility charges are things that you commonly see in them. And generally there's a predictability to something like that. And then the second pot of money that you're kind of setting aside or you're all contributing to, is the reserve fund. And the reserve fund basically is for those non-reoccurring expenses. So if your condominium, has a roof that's mutually shared, or that parking lot that we sort of referenced, and what you have is how you know how much money to have in that reserve fund is you do what's called a reserve fund study. And sorry, I'm not trying to get too far into the weeds here, Luke, and stop me if it's too far. But essentially, what they're talking about in the reserve fund is they just take a look at all the assets, and they want to know, okay, is there when do things need to be repaired, and then how much is it going to cost to repair it, and then they reverse engineer that with inflation included and whatnot. And it comes down to basically what your condo fees are going to be. So then it's just important to take a look at those documents in the status certificate, because it's going to tell you kind of that snapshot of what those current assets and liabilities are looking like, so that as a new unit owner, you want to understand, is the risk that there could be some of those going up? Are they involved in lawsuits? Because it's going to be important for you to set aside some of that money that you're meeting on a monthly basis, so you continue the benefit of those services.
Nathan, can I just ask you, is it still a minimum of 15% of your monthly condo fee has to be going into that reserve fund? Is that a number I remember?
The minimum I'm not too certain with. I'd have to look that one up, but yeah, I don't think I ever see it that low anyways, to be candid with you, as kind of a practice. Something it's a great point that you make is some people see the reserve fund contribution is going up 10-15% over the next 2 years, 3 years, and whatnot. These types of things, there's always a story going on behind a status certificate. So it's always important to make sure that you are properly educated on what that story is, right, when you're going through it. Because, well, certainly I think we're in an extreme market right now where, people are, they're selling for different reasons that, they may be looking to avoid expenses, or, they may just be moving for other reasons as well, of course. But in sort of that more balanced market, then you just want to make sure you understand that story. So again, you generally are getting more of like a still frame photo shot, snapshot of things, more than it is kind of a viewed as like a videotape going kind of to or in the future into the past with very much degree. So yeah, sorry, Kim, I can follow up afterwards and drop that in the chat group, just what that exact amount is.
And the other thing that you would look at as well are sort of the rules and bylaws, because I think, Luke, we touched on it last week. If somebody has a pet, it's always great when you get that status certificate as a buyer to go, oh, I can have a pet, or I can't have that barbecue on the balcony. So it's a nice sort of eyes wide open going into it.
For sure. And Nathan, is that something that we've kind of talked about in this competitive market that we're seeing right now? A lot of offers need to be pretty much unconditional, and they need to go in with, people are asking, okay, well, I'm a first-time buyer. I'm going to do everything I can to remove my finance condition, remove my home inspection. But in terms of the condo review, is that something that people could maybe get taken care of before they submit their offer, so they don't necessarily have to go in with a condition? Or what are you kind of seeing now?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question again, and that is really common right now for a lot of the proactive agents. When you can, there isn't always a status certificate that is available to be reviewed early, but certainly something that we offer is being able to review that in advance right now, because certainly going in with as clean of an offer as you can, and that's definitely an important thing. And yeah, as long as that status certificate is kind of 90 days within the time it's being reviewed, is the time frame it is, to be current, is what you want to kind of look for. But yeah, definitely a great strategy, especially in this market.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, no, that, so now we're just kind of taking a look at, okay, we've now put some conditions in our offer. We've walked through financing, home inspection. We've now taken a look at kind of the health of the condominium. We're content with, you get Nathan and Thomas's check mark of approval that, yeah, the condominium's in good shape. And now you've then completed all of your conditions. And so what then is the next step there, Kim?
So then what we would do is to waive our conditions or to firm up, we would do what we call as a notice of fulfillment of conditions. And that is just saying that the buyer has satisfied all of their conditions. And once they sign that piece of paper, then the deal is done and the deal is firm and binding. And then the sold sign goes on. And then we pop the champagne.
There we go. We were all waiting for that moment there. So the sold sign's up. We're all celebrating. And now this is then, again, where we start then compiling all of the sale documents. And we then, as your realtors, will make sure that we have a completed, we've got all of then the signed paperwork for our records. And we do have to keep that then here within our brokerage for then future records. But that's also then something that we would then typically send off to you, Nathan and Thomas, to then have a review. So at this stage, once you kind of know that you're working with the buyer, they've now got a firm offer, what does then your kind of next conversation look like then with the buyer?
Yeah, so I'd like to say that, here at Paquette Travers, we are a very well-oiled machine. So generally what our process kind of looks like is that when the agent sends a copy of the agreement of purchase and sale in, we have a department that's dedicated to opening up the file, making sure it's put into our system and logged correctly. And then that department is actually responsible for making the first initial contact with their clients. So in that first contact, either via email or telephone, the intake clerk in our office introduces the firm. And what's really, really, really important that we like to do off the first step is to provide our clients with what's called our guidelines and basically a whole rundown of the closing process. What to expect from day one, what we require from you, what it looks like up until closing day, how do you get your keys, and things like that. So we really dedicate a family unit from an intake clerk to a senior law clerk and a lawyer to surround our clients and get them through the entire closing process.
That's awesome, because the major theme that we've kind of had around this webinar is, how do you put together a team of experts and that you know that you're going to be taken care of and be protected. So that's really great that you guys have a similar approach then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people, are making the biggest purchase of their lives here, and it's a lot of money, and typically you are using somebody else's money through a bank, right? Like you are spending somebody else's money to do this. So real estate in these transactions, it's a relationship. Whether it be the real estate agent and the mortgage broker and the lawyer, you're building this relationship to help people get through the most exciting or sometimes even the most stressful point in their lives.
Yeah, I know we've, when Jeff Vandiverse came on, we were talking about just how significant of a purchase this is. And so, no, it's, of course, nerves can be pretty high during this whole process. So, it's nice to know that, okay, in the back, you may not know all of the details that everyone's working on behind, but you know that you're being properly taken care of.
Exactly. And you notice most of the time, there are a lot of people who are inquisitive and they'd like to know the ins and outs. But when people have that comfort level and they know that their law firm and their real estate agent have their back and they're there to answer their questions and guide them throughout the process, I don't want to say that it's always easy, but it's more of peace of mind.
Yeah. And if I can jump in, and sorry to cut in, Luke, a great tip for everybody is when you're engaging, people like lawyers or, your agents or, mortgage brokers, don't be afraid to ask questions. I have to say this, a lot of people, feel that, they just have to listen and, it's not supposed to make sense is kind of what maybe the older mindset might be, but ask the questions. That's my biggest thing to say. And in my job, I always say as a lawyer is, hey, you don't have to. I don't have to give you the real estate grade in property law from law school, but I do want you to understand what's going on here. And just like Luke was saying, it's got to be about that education piece as well, and making sure that you understand kind of, different options you might have ahead of you, and make sure you're always driving the bus at the end of the day.
Right. There are no stupid questions.
No, not at all. And that's something that we've been kind of encouraging everyone, is that looking at a lot of the people who are on this webinar, yeah, there might be a certain group of them that are looking to buy this year and they're ready to go, but there might be a significant group that's thinking ahead and going, okay, I'm maybe 2, 3, 5 years out from buying. And so, no, the more that you can kind of do to educate yourself now going into it, and asking all of those not stupid questions, but making sure that you're confident in the process, can really make sure that when the time does come that you're ready to jump in, that you're just that much more confident going into the process. So now that Kim, I'm just kind of going to throw this back at you. So now that the deal is now firm and closing, we've passed them off to Tomis and Nathan. We know that they're in fantastic hands over at Paquette Travers. Now, from the time now that the deal is firm and from the moving date, what does then the responsibility look like of the realtor? What kind of are you managing, and what other responsibilities do you have to coordinate with?
Well, so now the buyers have got to get organized for closing date. So they've got to get insurance lined up. So they've got to call their insurance agent, get all of those things. Movers, those are always either movers or family members with big trucks. So insurance, movers, utility companies, we guide them through now which different utility companies. Typically it's heat, hydro, it's hot water tank rental, maybe there's a water softener rental, and it varies from city to city. So it's us providing them the contact information. A lot of it can be done online, but they need to, as a buyer, you need to make sure that on the day of closing, regardless if you're moving in or not, on the day of closing, the day that you take possession, you have to make sure that you've got all of those utilities hooked up, and you have to make sure that you have fire insurance on your house. So it's just trying to make sure that everything lines up. You don't want somebody on the day of closing going, oh my goodness, I haven't done insurance. So it's just trying to guide people smoothly right to the finish line.
Yeah, so you can't quite just sit back and start counting down the days till you move in. There is a little bit of work that needs to be done before.
No, but these are good, exciting things to do. It's like the days before Christmas.
Good. And it's a similar then process to those who have rented in the past and they've moved into a new rental and they need to get the utility companies their name switched over into their name. It's a very, very similar process. It's just so that people can kind of relate to it if they've rented in the past. And so
I was just going to add, sorry, quickly. Don't forget to set up your property tax accounts. They will follow you. The city knows when they want to get paid. So please remember, yes, set up your property tax accounts.
Very good. Yeah, we can't have the tax man knocking on your door the first day that you move in. So now as we approach then that move-in date, there's of course then, and Nathan and Tomis, you guys kind of jump in here and kind of walk us through what does that process look like as you approach the closing date? Are there certain meetings that you like to set up, certain kind of deadlines that you like to set with your clients? What does then kind of your schedule look like leading up until that move-in day?
Yeah, just up to the closing date, Luke?
Yeah, or then including the closing date as well.
Yeah, sure. So the law firm's really going to have a couple different touch points throughout this process as well. Kind of wrapping up also what Luke was introducing is the law firm can be, in as early as the offer phase as Kim had introduced as well, helping with those conditions or reviewing things in advance in case there's, second sets of eyes that are ever needed in certain unique situations. But then certainly there is different touch points throughout the process where we're gathering that information that Tomis introduced. But then, there are more critical ones, right? And certainly, I'd be interested, actually, maybe I'll just volley the ball over to Kim first to just talk about some of the final walkthrough stuff, because this is a classic time when our paths generally cross, and something that's around the time of this where you're going through for the final walkthroughs, and we're trying to work a lot together, and the things that you're sort of looking for, and Luke, maybe both of you can tag this one.
Yeah, great question, Nathan. So typically what I like to do in my offers is I ask for 3 walkthroughs prior to closing. Because often, especially right now, you've got half an hour in the house before you buy it. And so a lot of buyers are like, oh my goodness, I kind of forget what the house looks like. And they want to bring their family through or whatever. So I always ask for 3 walkthroughs. 2 would be like just to walk through again, take family, maybe measure for curtains, if they got to buy appliances. But I always make sure that we do our final walkthrough a day or 2 before closing, just to make sure that everything is in the same state as when we purchased it. And Luke just did one of these for us yesterday, and we couldn't get the gas fireplace to work. And every time we've gone through, they have little kids, the pilot light was off. So I didn't want to go turning on a pilot light. So we just wanted to make sure that the gas fireplace today on closing was indeed working. So, it's testing the appliances, making sure that they all work, the gas fireplace, inclusions, that everything that the seller has said they would leave are indeed still there. They haven't swapped appliances. They haven't removed shelving that we had wanted to stay. So a final walkthrough is very important. And even if the buyer cannot go through it, I always go through it for them, because, and Tomis and Nathan, you'll on the day of closing, once the funds are exchanged, it's hard to go back and say, this isn't working.
It's very hard sometimes. And closing day is an exciting and sometimes stressful time, but once the funds are exchanged, we still do have that little bit of leeway until we actually register the transaction on the land registry system, which is all done online. But generally, the final walkthrough, again, we always like to advise our agents and clients, do that as close to closing as possible. If you can do it the day before or even the morning of, because like Kim said, there's going to be things that you didn't notice in your first or second walkthrough. If you're just bringing family through, you want to show off the place. But that final walkthrough really needs to be important, where you're checking the taps, you're flushing the toilets, you're checking the fireplaces, just those little things. Because your first course of action between you and your agent, if you come out of that final walkthrough and there's something that is not right or you think that's missing, is to call your lawyer right away so they can get on the phone with the seller's lawyer and figure that out before we close the deal.
The other one I find, Tomis, is you go into the house and they've left so much debris, like so much in the basement they haven't cleaned out. And so Tomis, on that, if I called you, like a holdback, can you explain to people what a holdback is?
Absolutely, yeah. So generally what we look at in a holdback scenario is if you call in and said, this is wrong, and until a situation, if there was garbage left at the property, was cleaned up, we were going to actually take, Nathan is really good at negotiating a fair price in terms of a holdback. And maybe, Nathan, you're a little bit better at explaining what a holdback is, just because you deal with them a little more frequently than I do. And I'll just kind of hand it over to you.
Yeah, well, that's a tough one to claim the interest in Kim's response when I just suddenly vanish into thin air like that. Sorry about that.
That's all right. We were just kind of going in what a holdback is and what it kind of means after a walkthrough if there's an issue.
Yeah, so the decision of a holdback versus an abatement going into closing was always unique to the situation itself. There's always a couple things to consider if you're a buyer and or a seller in these situations. But the important part is if you find kind of more minor damage on closing, it's something that it doesn't compel the parties to act in a certain way. Basically, because the government didn't want the people abusing the system to be able to find a little bit of a minor issue in the property and having some leverage over the sellers on closing, so it would create a bit of an imbalance. But nonetheless, the sellers are responsible to ensure they comply with the agreement, just as the buyers are. And to that extent, when you find these issues, that's where it's really important that you just communicate with your team around you and advocate for this to be rectified. And we see all sorts of things on clothes. Candidly, there's things like appliances that don't work, of course, and then there's sometimes items left on the property itself. I had one of the toughest closings for myself. The purchasers were still in or the sellers were still in the property when we actually ended up purchasing. And I was a younger, less tainted real estate lawyer at that time. So it's kind of funny to reflect back on now. But what I advocate for when you're going through with your team and your agents in that final walkthrough, just the importance of, again, and I'm sure Tomis may have touched on, just capturing that photo in that approximate amounts, and then kind of talking about the decision to go for an abatement versus a holdback. Well, first of all, what an abatement is it's basically like a credit off the purchase price. Okay, so it's just like a straight reduction that you can make off of it. You do have to be careful that you don't have to report some of those to the lenders, but I won't get into the weeds at this stage. It just depends on the amount. But then the second one is the holdback, and of course those are the funds that you're holding back on closing, and it can be in the buyer's or the seller's lawyer's trust accounts. And basically what happens is you say, okay, we're going to agree to hold this in our trust account based on these types of terms. And generally the parties have a great idea of what was originally agreed to and what the state of the condition of that was supposed to be in. So they're able to drive a lot of kind of the main terms behind what should be included in the holdback, in terms of, how much time does somebody need to fix it? What sort of proof has to be required, and something I definitely try to do in my holdbacks is spell out as much detail as you can to contemplate the different eventualities, because it's just important for people to deal with these kind of as clearly as possible. So again, everybody's coming away with what they thought they were going to buy, and all sorts of unique reasons to kind of want to do that stuff as well. So if it's something that like I said, there's stuff left on the property or whatever it could be.
So Nathan, I'm just going to jump in there and say, honestly, I found that I've been very lucky. I haven't had many of those closing day fiascos. And when I do call the lawyer, I'm always like, how do you do this job? Like the pressure on the closing date for you. But fortunately, for myself and my clients, we've been very lucky. There's been very minor issues typically on closing date, and it usually goes very smooth. So it is there, but I don't want to scare people to think that it happens all the time.
Oh, you're totally right in that, Kim, and you're right to reel that one back in. Most of the closings go extremely well and without a hitch, and it's mostly sunshine and lollipops the most of the way through with the good feels, and that's just the value, I guess, of the good team isn't always necessarily felt, because it's if it goes off without a hitch, there's never really I would say a lot of places are capable of kind of assisting in that time, but you just never know, right? And that's to the point of knocking on wood around us that the streaks always continue. And I think it probably speaks to a lot of the client management to the extent you can as well, right? It's not being able to foresee every sort of problem, but being as proactive as possible, I'm sure helps to support that streak that you're talking about as well.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like having good insurance. You don't really appreciate it, and it just kind of works its magic in the background until the day that you need it. And you go, okay, thank God I had someone on my side looking after me. So
yeah, no, that's entirely it. And again, I never get sick of it. It's really fun, a fun part of the job to see when people sign that last paper. You know, I've had people take pictures in the office, and you know, I've had somebody screenshot Zooms and say, "Oh, it's the big moment." And you know, it's been really fun actually. Through COVID, you've seen a lot of different personalities for buyers when you're able to accommodate virtual signings. I had somebody, it was incredible. I had a client that signed on a boat throughout this whole thing, which was refused to get off the boat. It was incredible. So really cool to see. And you know, you see them kind of looking at each other through the videos now, and there's lots of fun things when you see the first time home buyers, and everybody's experience seems to be a little bit uniquely their own, which is fun. So you can see the smile on my face that I can think of actually a couple today, and yeah, it's really exciting seeing them get over that threshold. And then, you know, what I jokingly say is, they're like, so that's it, and you know, you're gonna own the property. We'll give you the call, and that's when Kim and Luke come over, and then they pop the champagne. That's the time. But like the climax of, you know, when you're at the lawyer's office and you sign that final document, and we jokingly, I thought we should put like a cash cab ceiling in our in our building, you know, to set off. I don't know. It seems less messy than confetti falling from the ceilings or something like that.
And Nathan, closings are a little bit more different these days. Typically, buyers would have come to your office and picked up, if you were representing the seller, they would have, you would have couriered the keys to the buyer lawyer office, and a buyer would have gone to their lawyers and picked up the key on closing. And now we're doing lock boxes, so it's all, right?
Yeah, it is. You're totally right. It's so interesting. Again, just the evolution of the industry, right? Just in the name of the safety procedures we've had to do, and it's one of those things that, again, I think we did it out of necessity, and now we've realized that, you know, by and large, it seems to have worked pretty seamlessly. So it's you know, it does suck to not have the you know, the person come in and, you know, grab those keys, because you know, that's kind of the fun feels. But I'm sure when they crack that lockbox open and they get the first press through, you know what, maybe it's even better experience. I would be interested to see. But you know, convincing my wife to sell right now, you know, that would be that's a new battle.
No, and I think for buyers on the day of closing, especially if they're selling their house and buying the house on the same day, and they've got the movers in their current home, I actually think the lockbox is a great idea, because then one of the parties is not running to the lawyer's office to pick up the keys. They can literally take the moving truck right to the new house, use the lockbox, and you're in.
Absolutely. And, you know, even in this time of COVID that we're living through, just that the fewer hands that the keys touch and the exchange and the travel, I mean, just for that safety and sanitary purpose. Obviously, like Nathan said, we love having the people come into the office and pick up the keys and take the photo and get their PT keychain. But just to keep everybody safe and, you know, less hands on the product.
I need one of those keychains, Thomas.
You need, we just redesigned them. We will ship them over, let me tell you.
All right. So then, well, listen, it sounds like, okay, if you're dealing with PT on a closing day, you end up getting cash cab dropping from the ceiling. You get a cool keychain.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. This sounds like a pretty win-win combination.
I'd have to add a selfie booth now. That's what I'm thinking.
That don't tell Don about that cash cab thing. He's not he's not going to be impressed. That's not a thing. Although maybe it could be a thing. You never know. If you catch them on the good days, maybe this is we might be onto something here.
Could be a new corner for him. Yeah.
Just a quick kind of buyer tip too that I always like to share with my clients, and maybe Kim, you might have touched on it earlier as well when I jumped off the call amazingly, is just always think about, a lot of buyers ask, hey, do I have all the keys? Do I have all the keys? And the reality is you're never really going to be able to answer that because the seller can always have made different copies of the keys. So just a great tip to think about changing the locks whenever you get into the property as well, and those sorts of things where I don't know kind of the locksmith. That's not our territory. We do the boring signing stuff and leave that stuff to Kim and Luke. So anyways.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was in the final walkthrough Kim mentioned that I was doing yesterday. Our client that I was walking through with, she's going, okay, so I'll get the keys, and walking us through the process. She goes, and I guess I should probably change the locks. And I said, yeah, we kind of recommend that. She goes, well, yeah, because I guess you never know if these people like their neighbors and they gave away keys to this neighbor and that neighbor. She's like, or I guess I could just find out who those neighbors were, and maybe I could just become new friends with them, and then maybe I wouldn't have to get the locks. I'm not saying that that's the most safe way to go about it, but definitely something to think about either way.
You bought a house with a pool. Of course, all the neighbors have got a key for the pool. They got a pool pass.
For sure. And you know what though, it is maybe the thing of living in some neighborly communities as well, right, where that might be the right way to look at things right now. And yeah, I'm too tainted to totally agree, so that's the lawyer in me, but it's definitely nice to feel that way, and I agree. That's the mentality we need to all keep, right, when we're getting into kind of 2021. It's helping people out and being good neighbors. That's good stuff.
Awesome. So at this stage now, you've now picked up your keys. Like we said, you've now given it the first twist into your house, and you are now officially a homeowner. So that really, in essence, kind of brings us to the stage of, from the time that you've decided that this is the time I want to buy a house, to now you have dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and now you are walking into your first home. And so this is the point that, it's interesting, and it's fun to hear Nathan and Tomis talk about how much they enjoy that process as well, seeing everyone cross that finish line. Because when I remember growing up watching Kim in the business, it was always, what do you love about your job? And it was really working with families, working with the people to ultimately get them to that point, and seeing just the joy on their face of getting the house that they've always wanted, and starting and having a new home, and starting for their family. And so no, it's really refreshing. It's really exciting to hear you guys kind of share the same excitement. So at this stage, I want to make sure, as we're coming up to 8 o'clock, I want to make sure that we do have time for questions. And so, like we have done so far, there's a couple of questions here in the Q&A, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to throw it in the chat or throw it in the Q&A box, and we will address those now. So the first one that we had was, what happens when there are no conditions on an offer, but then financing falls through? Is this a possibility?
Yeah, it's a possibility, but again, it's all about the proactive steps you're taking with your team before you go out. Right now, Kim, do you want to maybe just talk about what you're generally advising clients to do, just to kind of reduce that type of risk?
Sure. So, as we chatted with in our financing session, it was about really going to get pre-approved. And Jeff spoke, Nathan, about, you can go on Royal Bank, you can go on Scotiabank, you can do the online pre-approval, but it's really not an in-depth pre-approval. So it's talking to somebody directly, giving them all of your employment, your pay stubs, your past 2 years of employment, like whatever that they need to really qualify you, so that when you do go out looking, you feel very confident, and we feel very confident in your affordability, I guess is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to just to make sure I answer the question though, for the sake of the question, at those stages, certainly you want to reach out to your team right away, because there's probably a reason, of course, behind this, that something changed, and that obstacle can't be, kind of dug around or over, under, or through type of thing. And, because there are different types of options that you can go for, different types of lenders, and, you see all of those in the industry as well, where there's private lending and that type of stuff, because, to answer the question, yes, your deposit is at risk. And then of course, what the resale value or what the resale cost is going to be, and all those types of things come into play. So, again, just if the one door closes, then just make sure you're talking to your team right away. Don't sit on that. Don't, keep that to yourself. Reach out to the people that can help you out, and look no further than Kim and Luke and your lawyers.
Because you're right, Nathan, because nowadays there's so many, just because one lender says they don't approve you, there's so many other creative ways. And what we're finding with a lot of first-time buyers is co-signers. Parents are co-signing, family members are co-signing. There's different avenues and creative ways that you can get financing. So just because one finance institution says no, it doesn't mean you're never going to buy a house or you're never going to get that financing.
All right. Well, thanks very much, guys, for answering that. Hopefully that answers the question. The next question we had was, can Nathan discuss the land transfer tax rebate process?
That's a good question.
This is the best one, because this is the one that saves you from having to pay the government some money on your first purchase. So I mean, everybody can like that, even if you're working for the government, right? So to that extent, what happens is you get $4,000, up to a maximum of $4,000 off, so long as you're a first-time home buyer. Now, there's a couple criteria, of course, that you're going to have to meet. So you do have to be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, among, of course, not having a home, an eligible home. And, I don't have the test right in front of me, but not having an eligible home anywhere else in the world. And that interest as well, just to be clear, can be a spousal interest. Okay, so if you have a spousal interest in a property, so I get this question, quite often, is what happens in the event my spouse may have owned a house and we were married at that time, so that means I should get my first-time home buyer credit then. And that's not it's not the case, actually. That you do have to be careful about, when you the sale of that home and the timing of your wedding is critical in terms of being eligible for that. And hey, it's $4,000. That's $4,000. That's big potatoes. Now, it's not $4,000 each, though. Okay, so if you are going on as more than one person's, then just be aware you're not both getting $4,000 for a collective $8,000. And if your land transfer tax rebate, let's say there's it only comes to $3,000, you don't get to carry forward the $1,000 and those types of things, as well as much as that would be awesome. But yeah, that's just a couple things to kind of be aware of. And I just want to stress that you can't have owned or had an interest in any other house anywhere else in the world, right? So that's one, and of course, having to live in it as their primary residence are key ones. So can't be done on an investment property as well. I just maybe should state.
Okay. And
Nathan, sorry, Luke, can I just ask Nathan? So what happens if a couple are buying their first home, and one of them has owned a home in the past, and they're going to be joint ownership? Do they get the rebate or no, because one has already owned a property?
Yeah, so they can actually get the rebate. It just depends on a couple things. When you said they were spouses, or they were are they spouses, or
Does it matter?
Yeah, it does matter, because then it's almost viewed, if they're not spouses, as being just co-owners of the property itself, and then you're entitled to your prorated amount of the rebate for how much of the title that you're holding. So certainly in that context, to be a spouse is an important kind of definition. And the spousal definition, I believe, it falls in line with 3 years of continual cohabitation or having, a child or in a relationship of some permanence is, I believe, what the test is. But I'll have to maybe look into that just to confirm what the exact definition was.
So if that's the case, then if one has in the past owned a property, now they're spouses, are they qualified for that rebate?
So if you sold the property before you got married, I believe is the answer to that. So if you sold it before you got married and then you purchased one as a married couple, then that one spouse could be eligible for it.
Okay, great.
Oh, that's great. And there was a follow-up question there that came through asking about that. So that's great. And just as another follow-up to that question was asking then about asking you to discuss the non-resident sales tax.
The non-resident speculation tax is something that was brought in 2017 that's effectively trying to slow down the marketplace for non-resident purchasers. And just keep in mind in this, okay, the term non-resident may be a little bit trickier. It's actually a status question, okay? It's not I live here and therefore I'm a resident of Canada. So a good one to understand. So if you're certainly if you're a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, those are scenarios when, of course, it's not going to be applicable. But there's also other type of landed immigration statuses that may also make you exempt from it. So there's two general understandings for this. There's an exemption portion, and then there's a rebate portion. So the difference between the exemption is you don't pay that tax at all. The rebate portion means you pay it, but you're going to be reimbursed for it at a later point. So there's all sorts of scenarios for when this is applicable, and it's geographically based. Okay, so that's a key one. Is if you are a non-resident by definition of the non-resident speculation tax provision, there are different areas you can look as well where it doesn't apply in that greater Golden Horseshoe area. So certainly something to canvass. But if you're spouses and one may be a non-resident, the other one a permanent resident or a citizen, then you may be entitled to it as long as you meet that definition of a spouse and you're going to live in it as your primary residence.
Okay. Thanks very much for that, Nathan. No, that's really helpful and very clear too. So no, thanks for that. The next sign we have, or the next question we have, are what are all of the costs on top of sale price, and how much should you budget for? So in essence, kind of what are all of the total costs that you need to be accumulating and accounting for in your budget? And I think if I can just kind of jump in here, and then guys, you can kind of add on if I don't nail it. But I think up until this point, we've been able, this question has come up a couple of times about understanding the costs. Okay, well, how does then my deposit check work? And is that accounted for in my mortgage? And what other realtor costs do I need to be associated with, and lawyer fees and all of that? But I think it is, in essence, when you're putting together the team, that is something that we can kind of walk you through. But it is definitely based on a case-by-case basis. So it depends on who you're going to be work with, who you're going, like the services that you're going to be provided with. But just so that people kind of know, Nathan and Tomis, is there kind of like a typical kind of lawyer rate for your kind of services that then people should be aware of? And I get that there might be a range, but is that something you might be able to walk us through?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So we're really happy here at Paquette Travers that we offer fixed closing costs on our legal fee. So our closing costs are not dependent on the purchase price of your home. So if you're buying a single family home or a condominium unit, a residential condominium unit, we have a fixed purchase price. So our legal fee, HST, and disbursements are all included into one fee. And for a purchase, that's about $1,545. Now, there's other things, obviously, that are payable on closing, which we collect on your behalf, that don't go into our pocket, that we just collect for you. So things like land transfer tax, title insurance, government registration costs, and other bank fees that your bank may charge, we will collect those on your behalf. And generally those things like title insurance and land transfer tax, they are all based on the purchase price of your home. So on our end, we kind of know the calculation that the government and our title insurance company set out, and then we're able to do that calculation for you, and you just pay that on closing.
Last question we have here, and please feel free to throw in more questions if you have. Kim, this is something that might be a question for you. Can you explain coming soon signs? What's the purpose? And can you see and or make an offer on a coming soon property? And I will take maybe a little bit of ownership over this one, because I don't know if it directly has to relate to this, but I did take an Instagram photo today and post it on our page about we had a property coming soon in Aurora. So I may have sparked this question by putting it out there, but would you mind kind of walking everybody through what that is for and kind of what the purpose is?
Oh, sure. You take the picture and I've got an answer for it.
Oh, and there's proof that that is what inspired the question the person wrote back. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, so I'll
really, the purpose of coming soon signs is it's a marketing. It's about advertising the property before it even comes on the market, because I think they're popular in any market, especially now when I saw yesterday in the city of Guelph alone, there were 50 homes for sale in the city of Guelph. That's not a lot when you think about the hundreds of buyers who are out there looking. And for a lot of buyers who Luke, you and I've got clients right now who both work shift work, trying to organize their schedule. So if they know of a coming soon, it gives them a bit of chance to say, okay, when is it coming on the market? Let us organize our schedules beforehand. Let's get an appointment booked. A lot of times right now, people are holding off offers, but it's not always. So if a house gets listed today on a Thursday and they're not holding off offers, and so as a buyer, you don't even know about the property until today, you don't even have a head start to try to book a showing to get your life sort of organized. Where if you see it coming soon or your agent sees a coming soon, they can prep you and you can get a little bit more organized. I've already had 2 calls on that sign, and people are fine to wait till next week when it gets listed, but they want to know questions like, what's the price going to be? What's the size of the house? Does it need work? So they're doing their due diligence already before it even hits the market.
And that, just as an own pat on my back, was when Kim was shutting down my idea. Well, do we really need an Instagram page? Do we really need to be doing social? Well, it's coming up in conversations. You're getting phone calls about it. So I don't want to take all the credit for it. But
yeah, they called me, not you. Remember that.
Your name's first on the sign, and mine's second. That's why. But as the second part of that question was, if someone does see a coming soon property, are they able to tour it before it comes on the market? Are they able to put an offer in before it hits the market?
It's all up to the seller. We're hired by the seller. We have a contract signed with the seller. And it's often what I find, like the property that we're doing coming soon, the photos are being done tomorrow. The house is show ready, but photos it'll be ready by tomorrow. If the seller says, yeah, I'll let people in, then that's fine. It's up to them. We're just the communicators at that point. But our job is to expose the property the best that we can.
Yeah. Very good. Well, hopefully that answers that question. But yeah, as of right now, if anybody has any other questions that they'd like to throw in the chat, please feel free to do so. But at this point in time, as we are a few minutes over, I think this is probably a good place to finish up. And so Tomis, Nathan, on behalf of kind of Kim and I and everyone, thank you very much for coming on and joining us. You guys gave a lot of really helpful and supportive information tonight. So if there's kind of one thing that you guys would like to kind of leave the group with, is there kind of one final takeaway?
Yeah, I think, there's so much information today on the internet, and a lot of people coming in thinking that they know what they're looking for, what they like, because they read something online. Please, 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 if there's one thing I can ask of you, use the people who are on your team. Use your industry experts, your real estate agent, your mortgage broker, your lawyers. they are providing a service to you. We are there for you. Kim and Luke are there for you. We want this experience to be the best for you from a lawyer standpoint, from a real estate agent standpoint. So as much as, you're looking at things online and reading people's opinions and perceptions, use your industry experts.
Cue up Tina Turner there, Luke.
That's right. That's right.
That was the comment of the night for sure. That's full circle. Same thing. Just want to reiterate our thanks again for being included in things like this because, first of all, there's lots of changes that are about to happen in our industries, and having a bit of the sugar and spice between the Instagram account and the phone number being called, I think is probably evidence of what that's going to mean to get into the future. But pay attention to it. Read stuff. Make sure you keep informed with this stuff, because the fact of the matter is what happened yesterday isn't happening tomorrow necessarily, right? It's all things that are going to change here very rapidly, and you never know when that time is for yourselves that you are ready to be into the marketplace, because you might be in a better spot than you think than you actually are. So, just stay in, build those relationships, because the more people that can start to understand yourself and who you are, that's what I envy. Kim, your comment earlier about growing with families and that type of stuff over the years seems to be the goal on my end. I think that's going to be fun to grow professionally with people and see those their lives just kind of build. And this is maybe the start of it. Maybe you're starting an early investor, or maybe you're already owning half of downtown Toronto right now. It's all part of your story, and make sure you got those good people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And really, I don't have kind of too much to build off of. I don't think between the two of you there's much to add. But really, just to kind of wrap up this series, Kim and I, when we sat down and were piecing together this webinar, our goal was to really have you walk away at the end of this month, at the end of February, feeling more knowledgeable, more prepared, more confident, but really more excited about buying your first home and about this adventure that you're about to embark on. Because as Tomis put it, there's a lot of different information and a lot of different sources out there that you can be fishing for how to buy your first home. And it can be a little bit overwhelming and it can be conflicting. And so we would love to be a part of that team. You see, and you've probably heard that word has come up a lot over these series, and especially tonight, but it's true. We assembled a team for this webinar series. We had on Paul Fitzpatrick, our broker. We had Jeff Vanderverse from the mortgage side, Kim taking you through all the real estate transactions, and then of course these two guys here today from Paquette Travers. And so we would be absolutely thrilled to be a part of your team when the time does come that you want to buy, whether it is this year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. We want to be able to experience that with you, and we want to make sure that this experience is as positive as it can be. And so when the time does come, we would love to be a part of it. So we are always here to help. And on that note, just to continue, we do have aspirations of continuing these webinar series and doing more of them. And we would love to know your feedback on it and what we did well, what we could have improved on, and topics that you may want to learn more about in the future. So I will put a link here in the chat that you can access the Google survey. If you have just a couple of minutes, we would really appreciate hearing some of your thoughts. I'll also send it in an email after, just in case, but if that's something that you wouldn't mind doing, we would really, really appreciate it. And as we do that, of course, we have had our door prizes leading up until this point. So this week, we do have a door prize of a $25 marble slab gift card. And so for all those ice cream lovers out there, then you can cross your fingers here, as I have put the names of tonight's attendees in a random draw. And I will spin the wheel here. And the winner is, Elizabeth Doney. So congratulations, Elizabeth. We will make sure that you get your hands on the Marble Slab gift card. But other than that, that brings us to the end of this webinar series. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this point. We have had a lot of fun to this point, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So enjoy the rest of your night, and I think it would be fitting to end the way that we started the session, with a little Tina Turner. So
only if Thomas dances.
No,
the
I
jacket's
can't.
gotta
I'm still
come
at the
off
office.
now.
It doesn't count.
Come on, Thomas, gotta get that jacket off. It's after 8 o'clock at night.
It's after 8 o'clock. We can all go home and have a drink now.
That's right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, it was great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.